The morning sun had just started peeking over the hills, casting a warm golden glow across the small town nestled in the valley. Birds chirped softly, and a light breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak trees lining the streets. Inside a modest, weathered house at the edge of town, she was busy preparing her twins for school. Their laughter filled the room, bouncing off the walls and mingling with the smell of fresh bread and coffee. She moved quickly, tying tiny shoelaces, brushing hair that refused to stay neat and gently scolding them when they got distracted by the morning cartoons. Life in the town had always been simple. People knew each other, exchanged greetings on the streets, and helped one another when times were hard. For her, the simplicity brought comfort. It was not easy, raising twins on her own, but the routine, the predictability gave her a sense of control. She glanced at the clock, noting that they were already running late, and gently picked up the twins, holding one on each hip, their tiny hands wrapped around her neck, clinging as she hurried to the door. As she stepped outside, the peacefulness of the morning was broken by the sudden sound of a vehicle engine that she did not recognize. It was a harsh, aggressive noise that seemed out of place in the quiet town. She froze for a moment, looking down the street, and saw a black SUV rolling toward her. The tinted windows made it impossible to see who was inside. Before she could react, the vehicle stopped in front of her house. The door swung open and a group of strangers stepped out. They moved with precision, with a strange confidence, as if they had done this many times before. Her heart pounded. She instinctively pulled the twins closer, shielding them with her body. She asked what they wanted, her voice trembling but firm. The strangers ignored her words. One of them, a tall man with sharp features and cold eyes, stepped forward and grabbed her arm. She resisted, trying to pull away, but there were too many of them. Panic surged through her, her mind racing, searching for a way to protect her children. The twins began to cry, their small voices high-pitched and desperate. She tried to soothe them, whispering, shushing, rocking them gently in her arms, but the fear in the air made it impossible. Neighbors began to gather at a distance, peeking from behind fences and through windows. Some whispered to each other, confused and alarmed. No one knew what to do. The strangers ignored the gathering crowd and pulled her toward the SUV. She fought, but they were strong and organized, making resistance futile. As she was dragged toward the vehicle, she caught sight of a figure in the distance, moving swiftly along the uneven path leading out of town. It was a man on horseback riding with purpose. His long coat flapped behind him in the wind, and his eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding before him. He was known to some in town as a mountain man, a loner who lived off the land in the hills and forests surrounding the valley. He rarely interacted with anyone, but his presence now brought a flicker of hope. The man on horseback rode with skill, navigating rocks, fallen branches, and rough terrain with ease. He had seen the commotion as he rode near the edge of the forest and knew immediately that something was wrong. He urged his horse forward, picking up speed, determined to reach them before it was too late. His movements were precise, every decision calculated to close the distance quickly without alarming the strangers. Back at the SUV, she was struggling fiercely, trying to keep the twins close. One of the men shoved her roughly into the back seat, and she instinctively grabbed the seatbelt to prevent herself from being thrown around as the vehicle lurched forward. The twins were screaming uncontrollably, tears streaming down their faces. She held them tightly, whispering soothing words, trying to calm them even as her own fear threatened to overwhelm her. The vehicle moved down the main road, leaving behind the quiet houses and the small shops of the town. The streets were empty now, the morning routine interrupted by the chaos. She looked out the window, hoping to see a familiar face, someone who could help, but all she saw were strangers standing silently, watching as the SUV disappeared around the bend. The sound of hooves grew faint in the distance, but she clung to the hope that the figure she had seen would catch up. The man on horseback had no doubt about what he had to do. He knew the paths better than anyone, every twist, every hidden trail that could give him an advantage. The forest gave him cover, the trees shielding him from view. He pushed his horse harder, urging it to run faster, knowing that every second counted. His focus was unwavering. He had seen injustice before, and he had never turned his back when someone needed help. Inside the SUV, the strangers exchanged worried glances. For the first time, they noticed movement in the distance, a figure on horseback closing in quickly. They had not expected anyone to follow them so soon, and panic started to creep into their demeanor. She could feel it too, a slight shift in the tension, but she dared not hope too much. She focused on the twins, murmuring promises that they would be safe soon, even though she wasn't sure if it was true. The road became rougher as they left the town behind. Rocks and uneven ground caused the vehicle to jolt, making the twins cry louder. She hugged them tightly, rocking them gently, trying to create a small sense of safety amid the chaos. Her mind raced with questions. Who were these people? Why had they chosen her? The fear was suffocating, but she refused to give in to despair. Somewhere out there, someone was coming for them. The mountain man continued his pursuit, ignoring fatigue and the rough terrain. His horse's hooves pounded against the dirt and rocks, carrying him faster and faster. He could see the SUV ahead, but the distance was still too great. He calculated his approach, knowing he had to be strategic. Any mistake could mean losing them forever. He adjusted his course, taking hidden trails and shortcuts that only he knew, closing the gap steadily. Back in the SUV, she whispered to the twins, telling them stories of magical forests and brave heroes. She hoped the stories would distract them, give them a sense of comfort despite the fear. The twins clung to her, their small hands gripping tightly, and she felt their tiny bodies tremble. She promised them she would protect them no matter what, and that someone would come to help. Her heart ached at the thought of what could happen, but she refused to show her fear. The landscape began to change as they moved further from town. The streets gave way to dirt paths, the familiar signs replaced by rocks, trees, and uneven ground. The SUV had to slow down, navigating the difficult terrain. The mountain man saw his opportunity. He pushed his horse to its limits, leaping over obstacles and dodging low-hanging branches, keeping the SUV in sight at all times. His focus never wavered. He would not allow them to vanish. As the vehicle rounded a bend, the twins' cries pierced the air, drawing the attention of the mountain man. He felt a surge of determination, knowing he was close. He shouted instructions to his horse, urging it faster, and his presence became more real, more immediate. The strangers noticed the horseman again, their panic growing. They had underestimated the mountain man's skills and his determination. The gap was closing. She held the twins tightly, whispering their names, reassuring them that help was coming. Her arms ached, but she refused to let go. She could feel the tension in the air, the fear mixing with hope. The SUV continued, but the terrain made it increasingly difficult to maintain speed. The mountain man was gaining ground, riding with unwavering purpose. The chase was no longer just a pursuit. It was a battle between fear and courage, between those who sought to harm and those who sought to protect. Neighbors watching from the distance had no idea how the story would end. They could see the black vehicle moving down the rough path and the lone figure on horseback in pursuit. Fear and worry rippled through the town, but there was also a sense of awe at the mountain man's courage. He was a figure of legend in some ways, a silent protector who appeared when least expected. The SUV jolted over another rough patch, and she tightened her hold on the twins. She whispered words of comfort, telling them they would be safe even though she did not know how. She looked out the window, hoping for a sign, a miracle, and then she saw it. The figure on horseback growing larger and closer with every heartbeat. A flicker of hope ignited within her, fragile but real. Someone was coming for them, and she was not alone in this fight. The mountain man's eyes were fixed on the SUV. He could see the fear on her face, the terror of the twins, and it fueled him further. He knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but he was ready. Every leap, every maneuver, every decision brought him closer to them. The forest and hills were his allies, and he would use every advantage to ensure they were not taken away. The distance was closing, and the moment of confrontation was drawing near. The morning had started peacefully with laughter and warmth, but it had turned into a scene of fear and desperation. Yet amidst the chaos, a silent guardian rode through the wilderness, determined to restore hope. She clutched her twins tightly, praying silently, and somewhere in the distance, the mountain man surged forward, his presence a promise that they were not abandoned, that courage and bravery could still prevail against darkness. The chase had begun, and the first part of their struggle was unfolding with every breath, every heartbeat, and every desperate plea for safety. The SUV continued down the winding path, the engine roaring as it struggled over uneven ground. Inside, she clutched her twins close, their small bodies shaking with fear. Tears streamed down their faces, and their cries were raw and desperate. She whispered words of comfort, soft and steady, even though her own heart was pounding with terror. Every bump, every jolt of the vehicle made her flinch, and she held the twins tighter, rocking them gently in her arms to calm them as best she could. Outside, the world was a blur of trees, rocks, and rising hills. The mountain man on horseback pressed forward, his eyes fixed on the SUV. He knew the path the vehicle was taking, and he anticipated every twist and turn. His horse moved swiftly, sure-footed and relentless. He had been through these hills countless times, and he knew every shortcut, every hidden trail that could help him close the distance. With each step, he felt the urgency grow stronger. He had to reach them before it was too late. Back inside the SUV, the strangers remained tense but controlled. They had planned this carefully, but the sight of the rider in the distance unsettled them. Whispers passed between them, voices low but sharp, and they adjusted their strategy, trying to increase speed over the rough terrain. She noticed the shift in their behavior, a small sign that her hope was not unfounded. She held her twins tightly, feeling the warmth of their small bodies against hers, and silently prayed for the rider to reach them in time. The twins' cries continued, echoing in the small vehicle, mixing with the harsh noise of the engine. She tried to distract them with stories, soft words about imaginary forests and brave heroes, hoping to calm them even for a moment. They clung to her, their tiny hands gripping tightly, and she kissed their heads repeatedly, whispering that everything would be okay. Her own fear did not fade, but she channeled it into strength, determined to protect them at all costs. The mountain man navigated the treacherous terrain with skill. He leaned forward on the horse, urging it faster, his eyes never leaving the SUV. The sun glinted off the metal roof of the vehicle as he closed in. He knew he had to plan his approach carefully. One wrong move could end the chase without achieving anything. He evaluated every obstacle, every slope, every fallen log, looking for the perfect moment to strike. His mind was sharp, focused entirely on reaching them safely. Meanwhile, the town was waking up fully. People had begun to notice the black SUV moving away from the main street, the strange scene that had unfolded earlier leaving them uneasy. Some tried to follow, but the vehicle was already too far. They exchanged worried glances, whispering to one another, fear growing in their hearts. Yet the sight of the lone figure on horseback gave them a measure of hope. He was a man who had faced danger before, who had protected others when they had no one else to turn to. The SUV climbed higher into the hills, the engine straining over the rough terrain. She felt the vehicle tilt dangerously on steep inclines and jolted violently over rocks, making the twins cry even louder. She held them close, murmuring reassurances, trying to create a small sense of safety amidst the chaos. She could feel their fear, their tiny hearts racing in her arms, and it strengthened her resolve. She would not let them be taken. The mountain man's horse pounded the ground, moving faster and faster. He knew the SUV was near a sharp bend where the road narrowed and became more treacherous. That was where he would make his move. He calculated the timing, the angle, and the speed needed to intercept them safely. His heart raced, but his mind remained clear, focused entirely on the family in danger. Inside the vehicle, one of the strangers glanced nervously at the distance. They had noticed the horsemen growing larger as they approached the bend. Their confidence began to waver, tension rising in their shoulders. The woman noticed this shift, her hope flickering brighter. She whispered to the twins, telling them to hold on a little longer. That help was coming. She held them tightly, feeling the weight of their small bodies against hers, drawing strength from their presence. The bend approached, and the SUV slowed slightly, struggling over the uneven ground. The mountain man took the opportunity, guiding his horse skillfully over rocks and fallen branches, closing the distance rapidly. He could see the vehicle clearly now, the fear on her face, the tears on the twins' cheeks, and it drove him forward with even greater determination. He knew the moment of confrontation was near, and he had to be precise. The twins began to sense the change in the air. Their cries softened for brief moments, their tiny hands clinging even tighter to their mother. She whispered stories of safety and courage, trying to distract them from the fear around them. She could feel their small bodies trembling, and it broke her heart, but it also strengthened her resolve. She would do whatever it took to protect them, no matter the cost. The mountain man approached the bend with careful speed. He evaluated the position of the SUV, the ground beneath his horse, and the obstacles in his path. Every muscle in his body was tense, every thought focused on reaching them safely. The wind whipped against his face, the sun glinted off the leaves, and he felt a surge of determination. He would not let this family be taken, He could not. The vehicle continued to struggle over the narrow path, the strangers growing more anxious with every moment. They tried to maintain control, but the rough terrain and the approaching horsemen made them uneasy. She noticed the shift, the flicker of doubt in their eyes, and it gave her hope. She held the twins close, whispering softly, telling them that help was almost here. The mountain man guided his horse carefully but quickly, knowing that timing was critical. He had seen the road ahead, the twists and turns, and he knew the SUV would have to slow down at certain points. He planned to use those moments to intervene, to stop them safely and to protect the family. His mind was clear, focused entirely on the task, and he refused to let fear or hesitation slow him down. The twins' cries began to change as they sensed something different in the air. Their tiny hands clung to their mother, their eyes searching for reassurance. She whispered stories, held them close, and tried to calm them as best she could. She felt a flicker of hope, fragile but real, as she caught sight of the horseman closing in. He was moving fast, steadily, and she prayed silently that he would reach them in time. The SUV rounded another bend, the road narrowing further. The mountain man adjusted his approach, guiding his horse with precision, moving faster with every step. He could see the fear in the stranger's eyes now, the first sign that his presence was affecting them. The tension in the air grew thicker, the anticipation building, and he knew that the moment to act was almost here. She held the twins tightly, whispering promises of safety and courage, drawing strength from their presence. Her own fear remained, but it was mingled with hope now. She felt the closeness of the horseman, the determination in his approach, and it gave her the strength to continue, to stay calm for the twins' sake. She whispered softly, telling them to hold on just a little longer, that help was coming. The mountain man moved closer, navigating the obstacles with skill and determination. He could see the SUV clearly, the mother and her children inside, and it fueled his resolve. He would not let them be taken. Every leap of the horse, every careful movement brought him closer to them. The bend in the road was just ahead, and he planned to intercept them there, where the terrain gave him an advantage. The vehicle struggled over the uneven ground, the strangers growing more anxious with each passing moment. She noticed the shift, the subtle change in their confidence, and it gave her hope. She held the twins tightly, whispering soft words of comfort, telling them that they were not alone, that someone was coming for them. Her heart ached with fear, but it also burned with determination. She would protect her children no matter what. The mountain man pressed forward, every muscle in his body tense, every thought focused entirely on reaching them safely. The wind whipped against his face, the sun glinted off the trees, and he felt a surge of determination. He would not let them be taken. He could see the vehicle clearly now, the fear on their faces, the cries of the twins, and it drove him forward with even greater urgency. The road narrowed further as the SUV approached another bend. The mountain man guided his horse carefully but swiftly, planning every move. The tension in the air was thick, the fear of the mother and her twins palpable, and he knew that the moment to act was near. He would intercept them safely, protect them from the strangers, and restore hope. The chase had continued for hours, but now the decisive moment was almost here. The SUV moved along the narrow path, every bump and rock making the ride rougher. Inside, she held her twins tightly, rocking them gently as they cried, their tiny bodies trembling with fear. She whispered words of comfort, her voice soft and steady, even as her own heart raced. The fear was almost unbearable, but she focused on the twins, drawing strength from their presence. She told them stories of courage, of brave heroes who faced impossible odds, hoping to calm them even for a few moments. Outside, the mountain man continued his pursuit. He rode with skill and determination, his horse sure-footed and fast. The rough terrain did not slow him down. He knew every hill, every hidden trail, and every shortcut. He adjusted his path, weaving through trees and rocks, always keeping the SUV in sight. His eyes never left them, focused entirely on the mother and her children. He could feel their fear, could sense their hope, and it fueled his determination. The SUV struggled over the rough ground, the strangers growing more nervous as they noticed the horsemen gaining on them. They had planned this abduction carefully, but they had not counted on someone who knew the land so well. Their confidence began to waver, tension rising with each passing second. She noticed it, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. She held the twins close, whispering softly that help was coming, that they were not alone. The road became steeper, winding up the hills, and the SUV slowed slightly, the engine straining against the incline. She held the twins tighter, trying to soothe them as best she could. They clung to her, their tiny hands gripping tightly, their faces buried in her chest. She whispered words of love and courage, promising them that everything would be all right, even though she did not know exactly how it would end. The fear was still there, but so was the hope, fragile but real. The mountain man pressed forward, riding faster as the terrain became more challenging. He could see the SUV clearly now, the fear on her face, the crying of the twins, and it pushed him forward with even greater urgency. He planned every move carefully, knowing the road ahead would be dangerous. Rocks and fallen branches blocked parts of the path, and he navigated around them with skill, keeping the SUV in sight at all times. His heart raced, but his mind was sharp, focused entirely on saving them. The twins' cries softened for brief moments, sensing the presence of someone who might help. She whispered stories to them, her words steady and gentle, trying to distract them from the fear around them. She could feel their small bodies trembling, and it broke her heart, but it also strengthened her resolve. She would do whatever it took to protect them. No matter the danger, she held them tightly, rocking them gently, whispering promises of safety. The SUV approached a narrow part of the path where the hills closed in on either side. The vehicle had to slow down, carefully maneuvering around rocks and fallen trees. The mountain man saw his chance. He guided his horse carefully, closing the distance with every step. His eyes were fixed on the SUV, on the mother and her children, and he felt a surge of determination. He would not let them be taken. Every leap of his horse, every careful movement brought him closer to them. The strangers inside the vehicle grew more anxious. They had noticed the horseman getting closer and had realized he was skilled and relentless. Their confidence waned, tension rising as they tried to maintain control of the SUV. She noticed it, a small spark of hope flickering inside her. She held the twins tighter, whispering softly, telling them that help was near, that someone was coming to save them. The road narrowed further, the path becoming more treacherous. The mountain man adjusted his approach, guiding his horse with precision and speed. He could see the fear in the strangers' eyes, the way they hesitated, the way their grip on control slipped slightly. He planned his move carefully, waiting for the perfect moment to intervene. His focus was unwavering, his determination absolute. He would reach them safely. Inside the SUV, she whispered softly to the twins, telling them to hold on a little longer, that someone was coming for them. She held them close, rocking them gently, trying to calm them as best she could. Her own fear remained, but it was mingled with hope now. She saw the horseman in the distance closing in, and she felt a flicker of relief. The moment of confrontation was approaching, and she prayed silently for it to go well. The SUV jolted over a particularly rough patch of ground, making the twins cry louder. She held them tightly, whispering words of reassurance, telling them that they were not alone, that someone was coming to protect them. Her heart ached at the thought of what could happen, but she refused to let despair take over. The mountain man was getting closer, and that knowledge gave her strength. The horseman navigated the difficult terrain with skill, his horse moving swiftly and surely. He could see the SUV more clearly now, the mother and her twins inside. He felt their fear, their hope, and it drove him forward with even greater urgency. The road ahead was narrow and winding, but he was ready. Every obstacle, every challenge, every risk was calculated. He would not let them be taken. The strangers in the SUV noticed the horseman getting closer. Panic started to creep into their movements, their attempts to maintain control faltering. She held the twins tighter, whispering softly, telling them that help was almost here. The fear was still strong, but so was the hope. She could see the determination of the mountain man, and it gave her strength to keep calm for the sake of the twins. The SUV rounded another bend, and the mountain man saw his chance. The road narrowed, the terrain uneven, and he knew this was the moment to act. He guided his horse carefully, moving with precision and speed, closing the distance rapidly. His eyes were fixed on the SUV, on the mother and her children, and he felt a surge of determination. He would reach them safely. The twins' cries softened, sensing the presence of someone who might help. She whispered stories, held them close, and tried to calm them. She could feel their small bodies trembling, and it broke her heart, but it also strengthened her resolve. She would protect them no matter what. She held them tightly, whispering promises of safety and courage. The mountain man pressed forward, navigating the obstacles in the narrow path. Rocks, fallen trees, and uneven ground did not slow him down. He could see the fear in the stranger's eyes, the way they hesitated, the way their control slipped. He waited for the perfect moment to intervene, every muscle in his body tense, every thought focused entirely on the task. He would not let them be taken. Inside the SUV, she whispered softly to the twins, telling them to hold on, that someone was coming to save them. She held them close, rocking them gently, trying to calm them as best she could. Her own fear remained, but it was mingled with hope now. She saw the horseman closing in, his determination evident, and she felt a flicker of relief. The moment of confrontation was near. The road became even rougher, the SUV struggling over rocks and fallen branches. The strangers grew more anxious, their attempts to maintain control faltering. She held the twins tightly, whispering words of comfort, telling them they were not alone. The mountain man was near now, every step of his horse bringing him closer. He would reach them safely, protect them from the strangers, and restore hope. The chase had continued for hours, but now the decisive moment was almost here. The SUV struggled through the rocky path, the tires skidding over loose stones and uneven ground. Inside, she held her twins tightly, their cries piercing the confined space of the vehicle. She whispered words of comfort, holding them as close as she could, rocking them gently despite the jolt and sway of the SUV. Her own heart was pounding, fear gripping her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm for their sake. She focused on keeping their tiny hands and bodies safe, promising that someone was coming to help them. The mountain man pressed forward through the forested hills, his horse leaping over fallen branches and navigating narrow trails with precision. He had calculated his approach carefully, knowing that the narrow, winding path ahead would give him the perfect chance to intercept the SUV. Every step of the horse was measured, every obstacle accounted for. He could see the vehicle more clearly now, the mother inside clinging to her children, and his determination intensified. He would not let them be taken. He would reach them before it was too late. Inside the SUV, the strangers were growing anxious. They had noticed the rider closing in, moving faster than they expected, and it unsettled them. They exchanged tense glances, trying to adjust their plan, but fear was creeping into their movements. She noticed the shift, a flicker of hope rising in her chest. She held the twins tighter, whispering softly to them, telling them that help was near, that they would be safe soon. The hope was fragile but real, giving her a small measure of strength to endure the ride. The road narrowed even further as the SUV climbed the hills, making it difficult to maintain speed. Rocks and tree roots forced the vehicle to slow, jolting them sharply with every movement. She clutched the twins tightly, whispering calming words, stories of brave heroes in safe places. Their cries softened for brief moments as they sensed her presence, her warmth, and her unwavering determination to protect them. Despite the fear and uncertainty, the bond between mother and children strengthened their courage. The mountain man guided his horse with skill, keeping pace and narrowing the gap. He could see the fear on the faces inside the SUV, the desperate clinging of the mother to her children. His heart raced, but his mind remained clear, focused entirely on intercepting the vehicle safely. He planned his approach, calculating every movement, every step of the horse, every possible reaction from the strangers inside the SUV. He would not allow hesitation or error to prevent him from saving them. The SUV approached a particularly narrow stretch where the cliffs rose, steeply on one side and trees crowded the other. The driver struggled to maintain control, glancing nervously at the approaching rider. Inside, she held the twins tighter, whispering softly that help was coming, that they would soon be safe. The fear was strong, but hope burned brighter now, that she could see the mountain man closing in. Every jolt of the vehicle reminded her of the danger, but also of the promise of rescue. The mountain man guided his horse down the narrow path, carefully weaving between rocks and tree roots. He could see the vehicle ahead, the tension on the faces inside and the crying of the twins. His determination surged, knowing that the moment of confrontation was near. He would intercept the SUV safely, protect them from the strangers, and restore hope. Every muscle in his body was tense, every thought focused entirely on the task ahead. The strangers grew more nervous, realizing that the horseman was skilled and relentless. Their confidence faltered, tension rising with every second. She held the twins close, whispering comforting words, telling them that someone was coming to save them. She could see the determination of the mountain man, the steady advance despite the difficult terrain, and it gave her strength to remain calm. Her focus was entirely on protecting the twins until help arrived. The SUV jolted over a rock and the twins cried louder. She held them tighter, rocking them gently, whispering promises of safety. The fear was overwhelming, but she refused to give in. Somewhere out there, someone was coming for them, and the sight of the approaching horseman gave her a fragile but real sense of hope. The mountain man's presence was unmistakable now, the silhouette of his horse moving swiftly over the uneven ground, closing the gap rapidly. He maneuvered carefully, using the narrow path to his advantage. He calculated the perfect moment to intercept, aware that any misstep could endanger the family. His focus was sharp, every movement precise. The SUV's progress slowed as they approached a particularly tricky bend in the path. He saw the moment coming, when the vehicle would have to navigate carefully around rocks and fallen branches. That was the opportunity he had been waiting for. Inside the SUV, the strangers were panicking, their attempts to maintain control faltering. She held the twins tightly, whispering words of courage and reassurance. Her hope grew as she noticed the horseman closing in, his skill and determination evident. The fear was still present, but it was mixed with the promise of rescue. She clung to her children, her heartbeat steadying slightly, knowing that help was nearly at hand. The mountain man guided his horse to the edge of the path, ready to move into position. He could see the mother holding her twins, the fear on her face, the desperation in her eyes, and it fueled his determination. He would not allow the strangers to take them. He would protect them at all costs. Every jolt of the SUV, every movement of the horse, brought him closer to achieving that goal. The road became steeper and more treacherous, forcing the SUV to slow even more. Inside, she whispered softly to the twins, telling them to hold on a little longer, that someone was coming for them. She held them close, rocking them gently, trying to calm their tiny bodies as best she could. The hope that had been building now felt tangible, almost within reach, and it gave her strength to endure the frightening ride. The mountain man pressed forward, every step bringing him closer. He calculated his approach, guiding the horse with precision over rocks and roots. He could see the fear and anxiety inside the SUV, the mother holding her children and the crying of the twins. It spurred him on, every second bringing him nearer to the critical moment when he could intervene and protect them. The strangers inside the SUV grew more anxious with every passing second. They could see the rider closing in, the skill with which he navigated the difficult terrain, and it unsettled them. She held the twins close, whispering softly, telling them that help was coming. Her hope grew stronger as she saw the mountain man approaching, his presence a promise that they were not alone. The bend in the road approached, and the mountain man prepared for the moment of interception. He could see the mother holding her twins, the fear in her eyes and the tension in the vehicle. He guided his horse carefully but swiftly, ready to act. The strangers had no idea how skilled he was or how determined he would be to reach them. Every step, every movement, every decision was calculated to ensure the safety of the family. The SUV jolted over a particularly rough section, the twins crying louder. She held them tightly, whispering words of comfort, promising that help was coming. Her heart pounded, fear still gripping her. But the sight of the approaching horseman gave her hope. The mountain man closed the distance, every step precise, every movement calculated. He was ready for the moment when he could intervene and save them. The vehicle slowed as it approached the bend, navigating rocks and fallen branches. The strangers grew increasingly nervous, their attempts to maintain control faltering. She held the twins close, whispering reassuring words. The mountain man was nearly upon them, his presence undeniable. He would protect them, ensure their safety, and restore hope. The decisive moment was at hand, and the tension in the air was nearly unbearable. The mountain man guided his horse into position, ready to act. He could see the mother and her twins, the fear on their faces and the desperation in their eyes. He pressed forward, determined to reach them safely. The SUV was almost within reach, and the moment of confrontation was about to begin. Every muscle, every thought, every movement was focused entirely on ensuring that the family would not be taken away. The rescue was imminent, and hope burned brighter than ever. The SUV rounded the final bend, struggling over the rough, uneven path. Inside, she held her twins close, their tiny arms clinging tightly to her neck. Their cries filled the air, but she whispered soothing words, her voice steady despite the fear in her own heart. She could feel the tension in the SUV, the anxious movements of the strangers who had kidnapped her, and she knew that the moment of confrontation was near. Hope surged through her, fragile but undeniable as she caught sight of the mountain man closing in. The mountain man guided his horse with precision, riding swiftly over the rocky terrain. His eyes were fixed on the SUV, on the mother holding her children, and on the strangers inside. Every step of the horse was calculated, every leap, every maneuver designed to bring him closer to them safely. He could see the fear and hope mixed in their expressions, and it fueled him further. He would not let them be taken. He had come too far, risked too much, and he would not fail now. The SUV's progress slowed as the road narrowed even more. Rocks and fallen branches forced the driver to reduce speed, making the vehicle jolt violently. She held the twins tightly, whispering reassuring words, stories of safety and courage, trying to calm them. The mountain man was nearly upon them, his presence growing larger with each step. He knew the opportunity to intervene was right in front of him. As the SUV rounded the bend, the mountain man rode directly into view. The strangers noticed him immediately, their faces registering shock and fear. They tried to accelerate, but the narrow road and rough terrain made it difficult to gain speed. The mother held the twins closer, feeling the surge of hope that the horseman's arrival brought. She whispered softly, telling them that someone was here to save them, and the twins' cries softened slightly as they sensed the change in the air. The mountain man moved quickly, guiding his horse to position himself between the SUV and the edge of the road. The narrow path gave him an advantage, and he used it skillfully. He dismounted, standing firmly on the ground, his presence commanding and unyielding. The strangers hesitated, realizing that they were no longer in control. Fear replaced their earlier confidence as they confronted the reality of the situation. She held the twins tightly, her arms aching but refusing to let go. She whispered softly to them, telling them to stay close and be brave. Her heart pounded with fear and relief, knowing that help had arrived. The mountain man moved closer, standing between them and the strangers, his eyes fixed on the kidnappers. The tension was palpable, the air thick with anticipation as the confrontation unfolded. The strangers looked around, desperate for a way to escape. But the mountain man's presence left no room for maneuver. His stance was firm, unwavering, and he spoke with a calm but authoritative voice, demanding that they release the mother and her children. The SUV's engine idled, the drivers caught off guard, unable to act decisively. The mother whispered to her twins, telling them that they were safe now, that the danger was ending. The mountain man stepped closer, every movement deliberate, ensuring that the family remained protected. The strangers realized their plan had failed, that their control over the situation was gone. Fear and panic surged through them, and they exchanged hurried words, trying to decide what to do next. She held the twins even tighter, feeling their tiny bodies relax slightly as they sensed safety approaching. The mountain man's presence and authority were undeniable. The strangers knew that they could not take another step without risking confrontation. The narrow road, the uneven terrain, and the relentless pursuit had trapped them. The mother whispered softly to the twins, reassuring them that help had arrived, and the twins clung to her even more tightly. The sense of relief began to wash over her, mingled with exhaustion and lingering fear. With a final tense moment, the strangers realized they had no choice. They retreated, scrambling back into their vehicle and reversing carefully down the narrow path. The mother exhaled in relief, holding the twins close, feeling the tension leave their small bodies. She whispered comforting words, tears streaming down her face as the mountain man stood watch, ensuring their safety until the threat was gone. Once the SUV had disappeared from sight, she collapsed to the ground, her body shaking with relief and exhaustion. The twins clung to her, still sobbing, but their cries were now of release rather than fear. The mountain man knelt beside them, gently speaking to them, reassuring them that they were safe now. She looked at him, gratitude overwhelming her, knowing that he had risked everything to save them. She whispered words of thanks, unable to find the strength to say more, her voice choked with emotion. The mountain man remained calm, guiding them away from the path, ensuring that they reached a safer area. The forest and hills around them provided cover, and he led them along hidden trails that would keep them safe from any lingering threat. She held the twins, feeling the warmth and safety of their presence, and she knew that their ordeal had finally come to an end. The relief was immense, and the fear that had gripped her for hours began to fade. As they reached a clearing, she sat down on a rock, still holding the twins tightly. The mountain man stood nearby, scanning the area, ensuring that the path ahead was clear. She whispered to the twins, telling them that they were safe, that the danger had passed, and that they would never be taken away again. The twins clung to her, their small hands holding on tightly, and she felt a sense of peace she had not felt since the ordeal began. The mountain man finally relaxed slightly, knowing that the immediate danger was over. He looked at the mother and her twins, seeing the relief and gratitude in their eyes. His presence had made the difference, had turned fear into hope, and had ensured their safety. He nodded quietly, a silent acknowledgement of the role he had played, and the mother whispered her thanks again, her voice filled with emotion. They remained in the clearing for a few moments, catching their breath and letting the tension drain from their bodies. The twins slowly stopped crying, sensing the calm and safety that surrounded them. She held them close, whispering softly, telling them that everything would be all right from now on. The mountain man stayed nearby, ensuring that no harm would come to them as they began to move toward a safer path. The journey back to town was slow and careful, guided by the mountain man's knowledge of the trails and terrain. The mother held her twins, walking alongside him, feeling the relief and gratitude that filled her heart. Every step brought them closer to safety, closer to the familiar streets of the town, where they would be surrounded by people who could help. The fear of the past hours lingered slightly, but it was tempered by the overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude. As they approached the edge of the town, the mother looked at the mountain man, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered her thanks, her voice breaking, telling him that she and her children would never forget his courage and determination. The mountain man nodded quietly, a faint smile crossing his face, and he turned to guide them the final distance safely. His presence had made all the difference, and she knew that their lives had been saved because of him. Finally, they reached the familiar streets, the small shops and houses of the town. Neighbors who had witnessed the earlier commotion came forward, offering help and comfort. The mother held her twins tightly, tears of relief streaming down her face, and she knew that they were finally safe. The mountain man watched from a distance, ensuring that no further danger remained. Once he was certain, he quietly slipped back into the hills, a silent guardian whose bravery had made all the difference. The mother embraced her twins, their tiny hands clinging to her neck, their small bodies trembling with relief. She whispered, over and over, telling them that they were safe, that no one would ever take them again. The townspeople gathered around, offering comfort and support, but she could only focus on her children and the man who had saved them. The mountain man had risked everything, and his actions had restored their lives, bringing hope and safety back into their world. As the sun set behind the hills, the mother held her twins close, feeling the warmth and safety of their presence. The fear and chaos of the day were fading, replaced by relief and gratitude. She knew that the mountain man had given them a second chance, a chance to live without fear. His courage and determination had made all the difference, and she would never forget the man who had appeared when all hope seemed lost.